Hello again, Martin Popoff here, back for another episode of the Contrarians. This is going to be one of our solo shows. So we do solo shows, we do guest shows, but most of them are Marco and myself. Been having a lot of fun doing this show. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe. Also, come over to our Facebook page, and we've got a Patreon thing going where we're adding quite a bit of exclusive Patreon content. So that's a lot of fun as well. That allows us to be a little more freewheeling. But Speaking of freewheeling, this is not a freewheeling episode. This is our traditional Contrarians episode. Our main things that we do have a few little offshoot things, but the two main things we do is regular Contrarians, and we do a newer show called the Contrarians Worst Album, where we look at an album that we agree upon as the worst album by a band. But this show is a regular one, and so the idea for the show is that one of the Contrarians team believes that an album by a band is their favorite album by that band, and it's kind of a contrarian choice where it is, usually not the one picked as the favorite album by that band. And this one fit perfectly to do a show on. We are talking about Diamond Dave, David Lee Roth. His catalog, David Lee Roth, of course, from Van Halen. His solo catalog is 6 records, 3 of them just as David Lee Roth. One of them, I guess he calls, well, no, I guess Your Filthy Little Mouth is David Lee Roth, and then he's got one as Diamond Dave, and he's got one as a DLR Band. Really stupid, but obviously, I mean, that it would have been nice if that would have just been a David Lee Roth album there, as well as Diamond Dave as well, I suppose. Although that one's a little loosey-goosey. You could call it a David Lee Roth album. Anyways, David Lee Roth. So what we do on this show is I give you my choice, first of all, and if it was not a solo show, Marco would be telling you the sober choices of the favorite David Lee Roth albums, the one that usually rise to the top of the lists. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about my favorite choice for favorite David Lee Roth album. It is this one right here. A Little Ain't Enough. I always have to look at that because, dumbly again, the album is called A Little Ain't Enough. And the lead single and the lead off track, or the biggest song that everybody remembers off of it, is called A Lil Ain't Enough. Lil apostrophe, right? So a little bit like that Mob Rules, the Mob Rules sort of situation. So why is this my favorite David Lee Roth album? Okay. Number one, when I look at this whole catalog, none of the records strike out or strike me as all that great or all that successful. It's a little bit of a disappointing catalog start to finish. So I'm picking this as my favorite David Lee Roth album, but I'm not saying I absolutely adore this record either. But here's why I like it. So first of all, interesting record. It's produced by Bob Rock, and it's recorded at Little Mountain. So I have a podcast called History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff, and one of the episodes was Go to Vancouver and Try Harder. So a lot of these hair metal acts kind of did this pilgrimage to Vancouver to semi, i.e. maybe not, sober up, go to the number 5 Orange Strip Bar, all that stuff, record with Bob Rock or Bruce Fairburn, and get some songs from Jim Vallance and all that kind of stuff, and go to beautiful Vancouver and record an album, get away from LA and the toxic everything about LA, and go to Vancouver, clear your head, work really, really hard on an album, less distractions, blah, blah, blah. This is one of those. Like I say, a lot of bands have that in their repertoire. Aerosmith, Bon Jovi, somewhat Scorpions, a little bit Van Halen, a little bit Whitesnake, or a lot, I think Jackal even did it, Motley Crue. So this record is that in spades. It is that kind of record. So it's a fairly long record. I think it's his best produced record in terms of having a fullness of sound. The interesting thing about this album, so you've got Greg Bissonette on drums, Matt Bissonette on bass. Steve Hunter on guitars. So Steve Hunter, of course, is the Fix-It Man from the 70s, Lou Reed, Alice Cooper. He's in on guitars, but he's also in on a lot of the songwriting. And you've also got Jason Becker, obviously that very inspiring ALS story of Jason Becker. And this is one of the things he did before he was, terribly stricken, I guess, with ALS. But Jason Becker is the lead guitarist. He's the shredder of choice, replacing your Steve Vai in this situation. But you've also got Brett Tuggle, the keyboardist, who is in on most of the songwriting. And a lot of the songs are like Hunter Roth Tuggle on this album. But what I like about this record is it's fairly heavy. The guitars sound, it's a traditional conservative recording. It's a filled in muscular recording, which is missing from the first two David Lee Roth albums. And just to go through the tracks a little, why I think this is quite good. I mean, I really like the opening track, A Little Ain't Enough. Good, heavy hair metal song, a lot of David's sort of charming wordplay and personality on it. A lot of window dressing, pretty cool. Shoot It, not too crazy. With that one, Baby's on Fire is a really good heavy one on here. 40 Below is one of these where it's a good combination of slightly tough instrumentation, but also a little bit of David's swing and R&B and hair metal all mixed together. But to me, that only works well when he actually puts a little guitar and bass and drums oomph behind it. Drop in the Bucket, closing track on here, I think is a really, really cool, charming favorite in terms of like an Aerosmith Van Halen funky thing with a lot of cracking jokes. And it reminds me a little bit of Two Fools a Minute off of the Skyscraper album, which I like as well. I should take that out of the plastic there. There's your Skyscraper album. That's his second album. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's Showtime is pretty cool. Last Call, Sensible Shoes was kind of a bit of a hit, and that to me is one of those R&B ones where there's not much instrumentation behind it. There's some dated keyboards on here and brass and all that stuff you expect from, Mr. Showbiz, right? Mr. Entertainer David. But generally speaking, I think this is a good, solid album, and it really goes for that ethic of go to Vancouver and try harder. Most of the other albums, so again, it's almost a little bit by default that I'm liking this record the most, because I think it's a, what would I call it? A 7.5 out of 10, something like that. But it is fairly entertaining, and it's meaty and it's long, and it seems like they put a lot of work into it, because that's one of the things we kind of don't like about Dave, where some of the stuff seems a little like he's not putting a lot of work into it. He's a little detached from the music end of it. Always a good front man, and the singing and the cracking the jokes and the good lines, and he's fairly in there on the lyrics in most cases, doing something pretty cool lyrically. But he, there's often a disconnect with the music, or saying, we can do any old thing, and I can be Mr. Universal, Mr. Entertainer, or Mr. Frank Sinatra kind of guy across these records. So that's my choice for favorite David Lee Roth album. And I can tell you, I mean, in discussions with a lot of people, very, very few people will pick this as a favorite. I will hear Soundscraper slightly more often. I will almost never hear DLR Band. And I certainly will never, ever hear Your Filthy Little Mouth or Diamond Dave. Diamond Dave is a record that is mostly kind of bluesy, funky R&B covers. And Your Filthy Little Mouth is like the next step down from the first three in terms of being very heavy at all. There's a little new country on there, a lot of R&B and a lot of swing and jazz, and some fairly heavy songs. She's My Machine is a pretty good song off of this one. What else is pretty cool on here? You're Breathing It is actually pretty cool. Big Train is one of these, one of those slightly OTT fast little things. So it's kind of entertaining. But generally speaking, Your Filthy Little Mouth just finds Dave kind of losing the plot. We don't really know or care who the band is. A lot of players. DLR Band is an interesting one. I would say the deep fans and the fans who like the heavy stuff and the fans who would maybe pick a different kind of Truth as one of the top Van Halen albums would pick DLR Band, but I always found that a little frustrating. That's the one where John Five is kind of the main engineer, guitarist on there. It's essentially trying to be a different kind of Truth, like the no nonsense, pretty heavy rockin' David Lee Roth album. I wish it was called David Lee Roth. That would actually help it by a little bit, to my way of thinking. It is called DLR Band, which is really weird. But it's fairly heavy, and it probably could have been my contrarian choice or would be my second choice. But I kind of wrap it on the knuckles a little bit for I'm just never super satisfied with the songwriting on it. I just don't think it has a lot of great songs, sturdy choruses and hooks and well put together songs. It sounds like a little bit of the mandate of let's make a heavy David Lee Roth album take over so much that it forgets to turn in the good songs. All right, so the sober choice, the choice for favorite David Lee Roth album that I find in most lists and in discussions with buddies is essentially the first one, when Dave leaves the band and does this one, Eat 'Em and Smile. I must say before this there was an EP, of course, and nobody's ever going to pick that, and that's almost like a novelty jokey EP of these swing and jazzy sort of songs. But it's funny, you look on Spotify, and the most played David Lee Roth songs are Just Like Paradise, which actually is from this one here. So this is the back of Skyscraper. So it's funny. I was quite amazed to see that. But off of Skyscraper, Just Like Paradise, which is just sort of one of these thin, simpering, poppy, not even really hair metal. It's not even as good as hair metal. It's just kind of like a poppy hit single, obviously, because 17,944,000 listens for Just Like Paradise. Second would be Yankee Rose, which makes more sense to me, off of the debut, 11 million plays. And just a Gigolo / I Ain't Got You, I Ain't Got Nobody, sorry, off of Crazy from the Heat, which is a total novelty tune, but it was a pretty big video and that whole thing. And this is, I think it's 1985 that the EP came out. 9 million views or listens. And California Girls, also off of that, 7.7 million listens. That's your Beach Boys cover. And then Damn Good, actually. So again, Damn Good is Damn Good is also off of Skyscraper. So that's interesting. So that came in, but now we're down to 1.9 million plays. So really, David Lee Roth's catalog, I don't think gets a lot of plays. The debut album went platinum, and the second one went platinum, and the third one went gold, and then he didn't really certify after that. But again, most people will pick this one as the favorite. Essentially, there was a lot of excitement around this at the time. Obviously, there's the big dust up with Van Halen, breaking up one of the biggest bands in the world at the time. And then Van Halen bounced right back with 5150. They didn't miss a beat. It was a huge album with Sammy Hagar. But, right at the same time, 5150 comes out and Eat 'Em and Smile comes out. And why I'm not so crazy about this one, Yankee Rose I don't like because it's just a heavy bluesy, shuffly sort of song. Don't like those kinds of songs. I'm Easy, joke tune. Shy Boy, just picking up an old Talus scrap. It's one of these OTT. When Van Halen does a fast rocker, like a quote unquote thrasher, like Get Up off of 5150 or Hang 'Em High off of Diver Down, or when David Lee Roth does it, which is your Shy Boy. And what would be the one off here? Is it the Bottom Line? No, Stand Up. maybe there isn't. Maybe Bottom Line is like that off of that one. He does a couple other ones. Um, but yeah, Shy Boy is one of those. Shy Boy off of this one and Elephant Gun are kind of the same thing. Just and so the big problem with these in Van Halen and with David Lee Roth is the production just does not do them any favors. I mean, I like Van Halen's Brown sound, but the Brown sound does not apply itself to one of these, heart attack fast rockers. Never sounds very good. And then David Lee Roth just did not get very good production. This is Ted Templeman, who should have known better, but this is not a good sounding record. It doesn't have a lot of bass. Steve Vai is problematic in a heavy metal role. He always has been. He's problematic on that second Alcatraz album, Disturbing the Peace. He's problematic on in Whitesnake. And on this, he's just like too much high ear-piercing dog whistle stuff, jokey things, too much roaming around, not playing the riff, playing a fill on guitar. It's annoying, it's distracting, and it doesn't serve the song. And I think that's a problem on both of these albums. But the bigger problem really is, Tobacco Road, another bluesy thing, a cover. Going Crazy is your Just Like Paradise from this one, just kind of like a simpering, thin, poppy tune. Bump and Grind's pretty good. That's Life is, again, just another Frank Sinatra swingy sort of tune. So only 10 tracks on it, so it's not even that long, actually. Wow, this is not long at all, because a lot of these are 2 minutes something. So this is a short album. Ladies Night in Buffalo, not that great. Boy, what do I like off of this? Not very much. I mean, Shy Boy, Elephant Gun is probably the best song on it, and Bump and Grind is pretty good. But yeah, Greg Bissonette on drums, Billy Sheehan on bass. So Billy's a little bit like your Steve Vai. Like there's just too much note dense shredding on here from the guitarist and the bass player, and frankly, for that matter, the drummer and even the vocalist. So this is a band where David Lee Roth said, I'm going to have firepower coming from all corners. Like this is going to be Van Halen times 10. And it just sounds frantic and trying too hard. And there's just not a lot on here. There's no reason really to think this is the best David Lee Roth album. And now that I look at this again, I mean, I almost think that DLR Band and A Little Ain't Enough are the only ones that should really apply. I mean, just a few words on Skyscraper. Like I say, a few people will pick Skyscraper. And I do like Skyscraper for being a little more creatively fearless and embracing the atmospheric and the thinness that comes from the personality of a Steve Vai. This one is quote unquote self-produced by David Lee Roth, co-produced by Steve Vai. So it's a little weirder than the debut. It's a little less conservative. And for that, I like it. I kind of like the song Knucklebones. I think that's pretty good. The best David Lee Roth song of all time across all 6 albums, to my thinking, is on here, and that's Hina. And Skyscraper would be really high up for me as well, because it's atmospheric and strange and creative. But the rest of it, again, we're looking at a really short album here. Stand Up, Hot Dog and a Shake is kind of fast and, again, loose and frantic. Like I say, I kind of like Two Fools a Minute. It reminds me of that last one on, is it the last one? Not the last one. Yeah, Drop in the Bucket on A Little Ain't Enough. But no, I mean, I don't, I would give this record a 6.5. I would give the debut even less. I mean, I think a lot of people think the debut, well, they would be right. The debut is a little heavier than the second one, but I think it's full of more of that jokey fluff that comes from the EP, and you get a lot more of it back again on Your Filthy Little Mouth. So there's not a lot to choose from here, guys. I mean, I really don't think this is a great catalog at all, unfortunately. And like I say, I mean, I think the one when you're fed up with David Lee Roth, the one that you might spend more time with and start liking a little more is DLR Band. I've jogged around Toronto a little bit to that one, and it's it was coming off fairly favorable. Maybe that would definitely be my close second, put it that way. But I've always been A Little Ain't Enough fan. I've always thought this was pretty good. And the other thing that this record always struck me as was a parallel to the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album from Van Halen, which is their Try Harder album. And that one I think is much more successful. It's heavy, it's long, it's ambitious, really, really good Van Halen album. That's my favorite Sammy Hagar Van Halen album, bar none. So there you go. Here on the Contrarians, favorite David Lee Roth album, A Little Ain't Enough. Let us know what you think in the comments. Like I say, please subscribe. Check us out on Patreon. We appreciate, the support to keep this thing going. And we've already got probably 10-ish Patreon only segments over there. So we've been pretty good with that, and we're going to do some more. I'll leave it at that. Go play some David Lee Roth.
That's it, dude.